This is group number 5. We will now introduce ourselves and roles. My name is Brendan, and my role is the discussion director.
My name is Kalen, and I'm the summarizer.
My name is Celeste, and I'm the literary luminary.
Wait, I need to find my role. I forgot what it is. Oh, my role is connector.
Our goal today is to connect our books by comparing and contrasting them. We will use our role documents to help us facilitate that conversation. Please pull up your role document. Okay, everyone's up. We will begin with a brief summary from the summarizer. Please share the one major event and, most importantly, the event's significance and relationship to each other.
An important event in my book was Roman Emperor Constantine converting to Christianity, and due to this, the Roman Empire widely adopted Christianity as their religion, and this allowed for Christianity to spread in a great way because all these people were suddenly converted over, and this gave Christianity the depth and strength that it needed to survive the future.
Thank you, summarizer. Now let's have everyone else summarize as well, so we can better understand one another's books. So I'll start. So from the last lit circle, my book kind of got a little bit complicated. So basically, Jess and Daniel's relationship strengthened even more than before, and Daniel became like a father figure to Jess. And eventually, Jess's prayers just kept coming true. And one day, Mr. Daniel got very sick, very, very sick, and he was dying. And she called the minister, but the minister came into the house and almost like fainted because he was also very, very sick. And right before that, Jess's mom died. Like, she disappeared, but it was like signified that she died. So.
Hey, Brendan, we both share a character named Daniel.
Nice.
So, a summary of my book since the last lit circle is the two individuals, Natasha and Daniel, have definitely gotten way closer from last group. They've had a more like relationship type of bond, and they've shared more deeper experiences that they've shared, and they actually do have quite stuff in common about their parents and not being supportive.
So in my book, they met each other and then they became really good friends, and then they fell in love with each other, and then so basically they just had a day with each other, and then at the end Natasha got deported, and then they met each other in the plane again.
I mean, that kind of reminds me of how their relationship just kept getting stronger, like in my book with Jess and Mr. Daniel. It sounds very similar to me.
In my book, since the last lit circle, the theme's kind of taken over as like religion, and this idea of if these events didn't happen, how would our world and our religion be like affected? Because an outcome of a certain event could have went either way, and that could have decided the fate of the two major religions in our world, which are Christianity and Islam.
We will now move to our literary luminary, who will share some insightful quotes. Literary luminary, please share 2 quotes.
So a quote I have from the book is from the character Daniel, and he states, "We tell ourselves that there are reasons for things that happen, but we're just telling ourselves stories. We make them up, they don't mean anything." And this perceives Daniel as kind of a person who likes to like go into depth with things.
Okay. Thank you for sharing those insightful quotes, literary luminary.
And another quote is Natasha says, "A word can start off meaning and end up another. Words shouldn't be allowed to have meanings." And this explains that Natasha is like a more assertive person, how she doesn't believe that everything has a meaning to us. She likes to go into more depth.
Okay, thank you for sharing those insightful quotes, Literary Luminary. Now we will have our connector link his or her book to our world and our own lives.
So the first person I did was the waiter. So she, when she was helping with Daniel and Natasha, she told Daniel to teach his girlfriend how to use chopsticks because in her life, her son got she lost her son kind of in a way because her son married a white person, which she did not approve of. It connects to the world around us because sometimes people just disagree with each other and they can't be like persuaded with other perspectives. Or another way it connects is because the world sometimes there's just two sides of a story and it could be misinterpreted in many different ways.
That kind of goes along with my story because there's lots of disagreements and disputes over like who should control where, and that leads to like many conflicts in my book too.
It also kind of connects to my book because the reader can kind of make their mind up with how they want to view the characters. Like, some may view Daniel as someone that's using Jess because he was very rude to her in the beginning, but in reality, he was really just trying to see who she really was. Because when he tested her to see if she would steal from him, and he dropped a quarter on purpose in front of her, and she covered the quarter with her foot because she never had a quarter before. And
Daniel's also trying to get to know Natasha more throughout the whole story and how she is as a person. He takes notes visually and what she does.
So when Jess covered her foot over the quarter, he got really mad at her and told her that she was just trying to get money from him. But he did that so that he could figure out if she was the type of person that he would love and take care of, because he didn't know that her mom was abusive and never was with her and left her alone in the house when she was sick and just always was drunk and attacked her daughter, and he didn't know that perspective, so he did that so he can kind of get a perspective into her life.
Natasha also gets mad at Daniel because she sees him as like a follower or almost as a quote-unquote stalker, but he's really just trying to like, he really believes that Natasha's the one for him, but Natasha doesn't believe in love. But in the end, they do end up meeting each other.
Okay. Thank you, Connector. Now I will ask you all some questions as a director. I will not answer my own questions until all of you have shared your answer for that particular question. Please understand that I may need to encourage you to share if you aren't sharing, just as I may need to ask you to hold your response until we hear from others. This is also a time for you to engage in questions from one another. Remember, our goal is to link our books and identify similarities between characters, conflicts, themes, and/or central ideas to earn the highest grade. So for my first question is, how have the main characters changed since the last lit circle meeting?
My characters have changed significantly. They have definitely gotten closer to each other. Well, Natasha, since the last circle, she was very skeptical about Daniel, but ever since they met in the restaurant, they've definitely gotten closer because they had a little scene there that definitely shows that Natasha does start believing in love again.
Okay.
I don't really have a main central character, but the overall characters in my book have gone away from brutality and like killing everyone to more like strategized and kind of calculated attacks and battles.
I think the two main characters got closer because through fighting, they saw where each other was coming from, and then when they met again, they just learned how to use that and make their relationship stronger.
Okay. So in my book, Jess and Daniel's relationship became even stronger. Daniel truly loved Jess, and Jess truly loved Daniel. Daniel and Jess had some tension in the last lit circle, but now they view each other as true family. Now I'll move on to my second question. How has the conflict in the story changed?
Well, the conflict since the last group circle was Natasha being deported, but it's changed to now if they were gonna ever see each other again because Natasha had to go into her meeting and Daniel had his own meeting, so they were really hoping if they were ever gonna see each other again, and that kind of turned into a whole topic in the book.
I think the conflict changed because when Daniel got interviewed, he had the same interviewer, and that just gave another side of the story about the attorney's side, and showing how the attorney doesn't really care, kind of, about the people
Yeah.
he's working for.
Yeah, because he skipped the meeting for another girl, which Daniel also did, so they have kind of a connection.
So, what type of role does the attorney play in your
So he's
book?
supposed to let Natasha know if she's being deported or not. He's kind of like the lawyer of it, but he does end up missing the meeting. He doesn't tell Natasha that, but he does tell Daniel the truth.
So he missed it on purpose?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it was on purpose, but he kind of just like lost track of time when he was
Yeah.
in a hotel room with another girl.
Like I said, both Daniel and the attorney both did the same thing for another female.
The conflict has changed in a sense of in the last lit circle, the people were attacking for like resources, slaves, and like people to support their empire, but now they're kind of changed. They're trying to not even like just people and resources, they're trying to take over like the whole world. Like the Persians tried to invade Greece to get the rest of Europe, but it didn't work.
So, what I would say for my question was that, well, in the last lit circle, the conflict seemed to end. It actually didn't. The minister and Daniel grew sick and were soon to die. Daniel was weak and never wanted Jess to leave his side. Because, like I've been saying, Jess was really turning into someone he could view as a daughter because his children are either not in the story or he doesn't have children. It's not really disclosed, but he lives alone. And he finally just found someone to live with him and to raise because Jess never really had a childhood and she always was just thrown into the streets and had to fend for herself and never really got to experience things that most other children did during that time period.
I think your character development towards your other character is the same with Daniel. He started not wanting to leave Natasha's side, and once they were separated, he started acting differently around his dad and not caring and started disobeying his rules.
Like, what type of rules was his father giving to him?
He got into a fight with his brother.
So, one thing about my story that's similar to yours is that Jess was never supposed to go to church or anything. That was something her mom said she shouldn't do because it was, like, not important to her. But Jess never actually knew what it was. So, she just kind of thought that it was prohibited and it was something that no other kids did because her mom said so. But when she saw Mr. Daniel walking at night and decided to follow him to the church, she realized that her mom didn't really know what she was talking about. So she disobeyed her mom, but in disobeying her, it actually helped her more than it harmed her because it led her into having a new family that actually took care of her and loved her.
Jess and Natasha, they also have a connection because Natasha also doesn't believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't believe in faith, love, or anything in those topics, so they do kind of also share a connection about religion.
That connects to my book too, because in the Roman Empire, Christians were persecuted and like sometimes even like killed just for supporting Christianity, and that kind of connects because people were like told not to go to church, just like the mom told them not to go to church.
Okay.
It connects to my book because when you said that they disobeyed their parents, it connects to my book because Daniel wanted to be a poet and not a doctor, And through
Mhm.
Natasha, he realized that maybe he can have his own choices instead of his parents' choices.
Yeah, I think that just main characters disobeying people can always
Yeah.
change a story, because Jess disobeyed Mr. Daniel even, and he thought it would harm him because although he helped out with the church, he also owned a coffee stand and sold coffee, but he didn't want the minister to know that because he didn't want to be viewed as like a peasant, because doing that back then was like a peasant job, and he didn't want to be viewed as like poor or like someone that didn't have their priorities straight, because he didn't have like an actual other job, because the church and the coffee shop were his job. And Jess actually told the minister about it by accident, and she felt very guilty, but the minister quickly realized that he would be helping someone that helped him more than enough, and he 100% supported him in his coffee shop and was not viewed negatively at all.
Yeah, Natasha also goes against her own saying about I'll never believe in love again, because she never met Daniel. She would have never experienced the things she would never forget.
Okay, moving on to my third question. How do you feel about the main character?
Well, there's two main characters in my book. I really like how the story was portrayed and how it ended. I feel really good about them.
Like, do you think that their relationship will continue to grow?
Um,
Like all those stories ended, do you think that
I think
it's real?
there's a possibility, because there was a really huge gap between them. After Natasha got deported, they didn't get to see each other, so they kind of had a long distance relationship. But after accidentally being on the same plane, I think they can definitely become friends.
Okay.
I feel good about the main characters because throughout all the book, they found each other again and again, even though they went different ways, and it just shows the idea of destiny that Daniel had, and everything leads up. Every different choice leads up to another thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a main character, but I have a central theme of like, what if, and it kind of makes me wonder and makes me curious about how our world would change if a certain battle or a certain discovery wouldn't have happened, or would have happened a different way. How would our world change and be affected by it?
Yeah, because the Ukraine and Russian battle definitely changed a lot of people's views
And that
their
was
lives.
recent. So imagine the wars from before our time and
Imagine-
in ancient times.
Imagine Christians getting prosecuted.
Yeah, that would wipe out a large portion of the world, and the world would be completely different, because many people would be dead, and families would have never continued to grow throughout the centuries, and important landmarks would have never been built,
And
and
a lot of religions would change in their lifestyle.
yeah, and with missionaries, they would have never been able to go and spread religion, because that religion would eventually just collapse.
And maybe some people would start making different quote unquote stories about God, since Christians were being prosecuted. So maybe they would have made something else up.
So my answer to my question is that I think that Jess is a great person. She always helps others and makes sure everyone gets what benefits them. Jess cared for Mr. Daniel, although he was sometimes rude to her, and she made a relationship with him a reality. And just keep in mind that Jess came from nothing, and she had no love in her life ever, but she knew that giving love to others would help them. And these people were, above the poverty line, and maybe even above the middle class line. Like the minister, his family was wealthy, and they lived in a nice house with all the amenities that were amazing in the 1800s, such
It's
as
really nice
yeah.
to see two different lifestyles,
Yeah,
really bomb.
like
Because it shows that everyone is the same.
yeah,
Everyone should be treated equally.
yeah. So like Jess slept on a pile of hay in her apartment, but the minister had all the newest things, like a brand new fireplace and the best bedding and all the new inventions that were coming out during the 1800s. And Jess, although he had all that, still supported him as if she knew him for her whole life, although they had only met for just a couple weeks, which really just created her character as someone that would do anything for someone else because she knows what it's like to go through having nothing. So giving love to someone else could help them.
I think it really connects to the Sun is also a star because Natasha, when they went to her house, it just showed that there were different living conditions, and he still helped her throughout the whole thing.
So moving on to my fourth questions. Have any major changes in the plot happened since the last time we discussed?
I wouldn't say necessarily. Natasha was still had the meeting for her being deported. I would say the only thing that really changed was their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up having a lot of tension with each other and started hanging out more in the same day. And this all happened in one day, so it's a really big impact.
I think a big change was Natasha being deported because that just showed that they won't be able to live like they did for the past day, and they won't see each other again. And at the end, they also stopped talking again. So but then they saw each other in an airplane again. So I think that was a big part.
A big change in my story was the focus change to like the New World and kind of the discovery of Christopher Columbus when he went to the Caribbean and found land, and it kind of gave people hope back in Europe that like maybe there's more because they weren't living a very good life, and then they found this new land and they gained sudden hope and kind of like saved them because they're on the major decline, and then they found this land and found all these resources and other things, and it kind of just boosted them.
Yeah, the people having hope and finding land relates to Daniel having hope in Natasha. He never lost hope, and look how far they've gone in one day. They went from just sitting in a cafe to like singing karaoke and hanging out on top of a building and watching the sunset.
Okay. So what I said about my question was that I think yes, because Jessica's prayers have been more important and have made things a reality. Jessica is unaware and wants the world to be perfect. She prays every day for something to be perfect, but something negative kind of is an effect of that. Like she prayed for Mr. Daniel's life, but when she did that, she became very, very sick and was on the verge of dying. But right before she died, she prayed that she could stay with Mr. Daniel for longer instead of going to God, because he loved her so much. And Jessica is just so unaware of the fact that these things have a little bit of a negative connotation, and her own mother just disappeared and was said to die, and the only person that was a father figure in her life was about to die, and the only other person that held a major role in her life, the minister, was also about to die. So she stood very strong, and she was more independent than ever before in the story, because although she was independent when she was homeless, she's even more independent when she has things, because she's gonna live her life and be successful because these people helped her so much. But she started doing great things for herself, and she stood strong throughout her mom dying, her only father figure dying, and like I said, the minister dying. And the minister just changed her life because he introduced her to the church, which she eventually became obsessed with, and she based her life around it and prayed every day and went to mass every time she could so that she could support God, and she eventually just became more independent because of that.
That theme of independence is really big in my book because some countries today might not have the freedom that they do because of a certain outcome. The discovery of America might not have happened, and we might not be here today.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question. Is there someone in the book that has created a big impact on someone? Because in my book, there's a character named Irene who writes a suicide note, and soon after, she finds a note saying thank you, and it's from Natasha, and she recognizes Natasha on the plane, and she thanks her for saying, wow, thank you, I was not in the best place in life, and seeing that note you gave me really just changed my point of view of everything. And she's basically saved her life with that thank you note.
I think someone that an example in the same book was the attorney and Hannah Winter, because after that she believed in like fairy tales, because like they fell in love, and then so the attorney realized when he almost died from a car accident that there's only really one time to live.
Mm-hmm.
And that it really changed him and Hannah Winter's relationship.
Okay, so moving on to my last question. Do you think that the author correctly portrayed the characters in the second half of our books?
I'll go first. I think that the author did. In one of the events was the Battle of Great Britain, and the author portrays the two leaders very well. Winston Churchill, he describes him a lot, and he describes his leadership abilities and what he did to help Britain in this battle. And then he also describes Hitler as this person who not a great person at all, and kind of described what he did and what his strategies were and how angry he became.
I think the author did portray. What was the question again?
Do you think that the author correctly portrayed the characters in the second half of our books?
Yeah, I think he did. Natasha, even though she did fall for Daniel more, she was still having these thoughts, and she still walked away from him from an argument. So,
I don't think it was good, because the ending was really unsatisfying, because they kind of just met on a plane and they said each other's name. I wish there was more extending on the plane or what happened after that.
I agree.
So what I said for mine was yes, I think that Jess was portrayed as an even more nice and innocent than ever before compared to the other chapters. Daniel was shown to be even more of a father figure to Jess in the second half of the story, because Jess just showed her innocence because she never experienced things that are common in a child's life, and she was a teenager, so she saw things for the first time. Like when she went to church, she never even knew what a church was, which most teenagers and kids know what that is. And especially with Daniel and him becoming more of a father figure, he really just changed her life even more. Everyone was helping her a lot, and she went from poor to having an apartment and having a bed and being able to stay warm and have the correct clothes and not be injured and scratched up and getting sick every single couple weeks. So that development just really strengthened the relationship, and the relationship between Jess and Mr. Daniel was the biggest thing in Jessica's First Prayer, because it's two total strangers become father and daughter by the end of the book. So
I've realized that Jess and Daniel both have parent issues. Daniel's dad, they're from Korea originally, moved to America, and he doesn't want Daniel marrying or dating another race. So it's really difficult for Daniel to explain to his dad and greet Natasha towards him.
Jess's conditions kind of relate to my book, because the Christians inside the Roman Empire were they weren't treated well. They were in bad conditions, like Jess was. And then when the conversion happened, all of a sudden they had things that they didn't have before, and their life changed for the better.
So all of characters have either lived in poor conditions or been poorly treated,
yes.
I would say.
Well, everyone, great work today. I'm impressed with the way that we were able to connect our stories, which was much better than before. Did anyone want to add any additional closing thoughts? No?
I would say after reading the last part of our book that we've been able to make more connections since the last group we've had.
Yeah, I agree. So, excellent. We will now close today's first Lit Circle discussion.